Cards can make you do things. One card will make you be blue. One card will make you be red. One card will tell you that you're a pathetic, bootlicking scrub. Another will tell you that you're a devious ubermensch who toys with the laws of men. Some cards will tell you what the video essay is about. And that's this one. Here we go. What I'm going to try and do with this video is to use an understandable game mechanic to explain ununderstandable human behavior. Alright, so here's a 2-minute explanation of the game Avalon.
So, you gather 10 to 5 friends, or in your case, acquaintances.
You each take a card. There are 2 teams. Roughly 4/6 to 3/5 of the people in the game are blue or good players. They fight for King Arthur, who slept with his sister and tried to kill his wife with fire. But he didn't want to do it, so it's fine. More on that later. But then there's the other 2/6 to 2/5 of the characters, and these are the red, evil, irredeemably bad players. Merlin tried to have Mordred drowned as a baby. More on that later. However, only you know who you are. Everybody else sees this, but you see this. The object of the game is this here object. This has 5 missions, and you gotta win 3/5 of these missions. When you go on a mission, you lay down one of 2 cards. Success or failure. The good guys don't really have a choice. They want success on every mission so they can maintain their stranglehold on power in the romanticized gangland wars of old. No choice. The bad guys have a choice in what card they lay down. They could maintain their cover, like, oh, I play success, oh, you didn't see, but it was.
Or they could single-handedly kamikaze the mission, accelerating their opponent's demise, but at the price of potentially outing themselves.
And getting excluded from future missions.
There's also some very special characters.
For instance, Percival, on the side of good, knows who Merlin and Morgana are from the start of the game, but he doesn't know which one is which. Oh, who's it? Either Merlin is dressing up as a hot redhead or Morgana is dressing up as a moldy raisin. If you had a choice between kissing the one who's hot but disguised as gross, or the one who's gross and disguised as hot, who would you choose? That's Percival's problem. And that's how the game works. You see, you came for the condescending, this is how the world works, just trust me video essay. But now in addition to that, you've got the instructions for a game that honestly plays really well with the standard deck of playing cards. Support the official release. And there's this other thing where King Arthur's father raped and then married Morgana's mother, murdered her father, all with the help of Merlin. And more on that and the other stuff that I said more on that other stuff now. So, some of those horrifying fun facts I gave you about the good guys, well, that's only true of some of the manuscripts. Other manuscripts paint things as more black and white. And you know, it's funny. When you see things as black and white, it's always the other side that's black.
Profound!
Other manuscripts are just straight up soap operas. Across the centuries, the weird legendarium has seen every character hook up or kill every other character in the Arthurian cinematic universe. However, there's one common consistency in all of that, and that's fate. In the stories where Merlin tries to kill Mordred, it's within the context of Arthur having an affair with a woman who is, unbeknownst to either of them, his half-sister, resulting in that woman giving birth to Mordred on May Day. Merlin prophesies that some May Day kid born will be Arthur's undoing. Therefore, Arthur does the obvious thing and kills all those May Day kids on a boat. Oopsies, accident, and the kids die, which leads to Arthur's sister, baby's mama, cuck, husband, Lot, who's also Arthur's in-law, who thinks that Arthur has just killed Lot's child, who's really Arthur's child, to go to war against Arthur. But it turns out that Mordred survived anyway, and does indeed lead to Arthur's downfall, which is pretty understandable. I mean, it's understandable why Mordred rebelled. The story, though, not understanding it. And what's strange about all of this soap operatic storytelling is how little choice everyone seems to have. When you read about Arthur from his birth to his downfall, there's very little moral judgment from most authors. A modern reader can judge Arthur because we believe that his position affords him some sort of autonomy and agency. But to a lot of the storytellers and readers of old, Arthur was just a tragic figure, as were his allies and enemies. Arthur became a king by accident, unlike you, king. See, Arthur didn't ask to be born by some Big Bang Theory sitcom misogyny. He pulled the sword from the stone because his brother's sword went missing. He's laid low by the weight of responsibility, so to defend his kingdom's honor, Arthur so reluctantly sentences his wife to be burned at the stake to save his kingdom. Arthur, reluctantly, to save his kingdom, rounds up all the babies that threaten his kingdom and holds their heads underwater. Kingdom honor secured. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is one of the best-known Arthurian stories due to its European blend of horniness and impending doom. It's all about Gawain, and this Green Knight, And the Green Knight, he swings by the castle one day and says, "Hey, funny idea I just had. Why don't one of you guys strike me, and I'll give you the same strike 1 year and 1 day from now." Everybody's like, "No, weird." And they just turned him around, and he left. Actually, that's a lie. They cut off his head, and he survives, and they made a movie about it, and the movie was okay. And so Gawain, who did the cuts, he's gotta go to the Green Knight and get his cuts back, and but plot twist, but also movie subverts that plot twist. Ooh. In the old Germanic culture of medieval England, refusing a game could besmirch your honor and that of your kingdom. Games out of Germany today make you a literal bean counter. The bean game is pretty fun, actually, but it's a strange thing anyway, picking up a card in Avalon. It's fate. You didn't choose to be the role you were assigned, but we do feel like we have to play our role. And though I may dislike or like either team for the ideologies they represent, it's never entered into my mind to betray my team, because I don't want red or blue to win, not as much as I want me to win. See, in some ways, the Arthurian mythos and its culture had greater respect for the heritability of traits than we do. It's a surprisingly woke position. The modern Western capitalist mythos would tell us that specific right and wrong decisions are the predominant determining factor in who wins and loses the game of life. We tend to blame those who fail and praise those who succeed. Ever since we've stopped believing in the wheel of fate, we've had this unjustifiable faith in the ability of a human being to buck one's nature and nurture and just be free, man. And I think it's caused our society to judge one another as if we grew up without context. We believe that people are essentially good or evil without context. We think they just fell out of the sky and have no history. And because we don't believe that, we don't believe that future context can allow us to change. Let's not go too far. The extremists in determinism would tell us either that we have all the blame for our fate or none of it. Let's assume, for the purposes of this very cool essay, that the answer lies somewhere between the extremes and maybe closer to the drawing of a card than we would like to admit. So, Avalon is a social deduction game. Every player will claim to be on the blue team, but you will know them by their fruits. That is, you can identify someone by their actions and not their words. When you play Avalon, you really play a complex series of calculations in your mind. Here's a little flowchart. Cut away from me. So the flowchart is trying to get the algorithm to think that this is an Avalon how-to guide so that more than 12 people watch the video. But, as you can see, there are only 8 strategies across all elements of the game. That doesn't seem too hard, does it? However, slight problem. One of those 8 roles then has to discover the roles among every other player in the game. It's not strictly accurate to say you have to assign one of the 8 to every other player, but why be accurate when you can be brief? Plus, each of these 8 is responding to which of the 8 roles they assign to all other players. And now you're starting to see just how much computational power it takes to keep track of the social interactions when you can't read the minds or the cards of anyone else in your society. But the deception doesn't stop there, because the evil team can remain hidden by doing evil only when they think they can get away with it. When observed, even an evildoer will do good deeds. Famous Maya Angelou famously said, "When people show you who they are, believe them." And while this is certainly better than believing what someone claims to be, it's also short of the truth. I'm always showing people that I'm a good person, but not true. I'm always acting, both for the sake of others and myself, and video essays. And sometimes, blue will seem to be caught out as red. Sometimes red will act just as blue as true blue, and so long as there's a private place in our hearts, there's no telling who's who. Now, unfortunately, there's a solution. The logic behind Avalon and behind the human behavior it describes goes as follows. If you can pretend in public to be what you're not in private, and if we need people to act good as often as possible, then we should just make sure you're never in private. This is the same theory behind the 18th century panopticon all the way up until the 21st century surveillance state, and it seems to totally work. A 2012 study tracked bicycle thefts from 3 different areas before and after this little bit of creative decorating. And that's a pair of eyes staring like a child actor right into the lens with the text, "Cycle thieves, we are watching you." And the result was a 62% decrease in thefts. No cameras, no guards, just a private, toothless, eyeless warning. Even the hint at being seen has a remarkable effect on human behavior. And that's one citation, baby. That's all you need for proof of my argument. Ka-ching. Here I go to the bank to get the money for being right. Whether I buy stock in Exxon or rob a liquor store is essentially the same greed impulse expressed in different ways. We've just determined that one of those is legal. It's the Exxon stock one that's legal. Wanted to make that clear. So, what I'm trying to say is what Avalon is trying to say is this. The only way we can keep inherently evil people from ruining everybody's good time is to punish evil actions when they come up. We can't figure out who's bad or good, we just have to smash the evil's ugly rear when they rear their ugly rear. But what Avalon is also saying, if you're me and you want to really overdo this analysis thing, is who's to say who's bad and good anyway, man? In Arthur's world, it's the law that determines who's unlawful and who's evil, and guess who makes the laws? Also, one side looks like cartoon personifications of different STDs from Osmosis Jones. Doesn't help their case.
Luckily, that's nothing like our world.
Now, that solution is kind of intolerable. Avalon, the game, does not set out to tell us how to run our society. In fact, the fun and the drama of the game come from the very fact that living in Avalon is a stressful and morally repugnant way to live. We usually enjoy in fiction what we hate in real life. War, murder, crisis, sleeping with your half-sister and killing your incest baby. We would rather not live with the constant drama and discord that the typical game of Avalon invites. Societies collapse when we can't achieve simple communitarian tasks without suspecting one another of irredeemable wrongdoing. Governments evaporate when citizens believe the worst of each other. From the French guillotine to the fall of the Roman Republic, from the witch trials to the Red Scares to the Stalinist purges, we see the examples of rampant distrust inevitably leading to rampant loss of innocent life and progress. Now sure, we can accuse one another with more efficiency nowadays, but what makes us think we're any wiser than the generations before us? What makes us think that our surveillance states and news channels can tell the difference between mistakes and malice? What makes us think that we can trust those who sift the data to properly accuse and exonerate? After all, they're the ones making the rules, and they're the ones who want you accused if you don't play their game. We would especially hope to avoid this painful mistrust in a setting of our family or loved ones. While we'd be foolish not to notice obvious signs of wrongdoing, we'd be equally foolish to second guess or unreasonably doubt every action of every friend.
But it gets worse. In a culture of perpetual doubt, in a culture where you never know who hates you, how can you experience love? Well, you'd need proof. Like, share, and subscribe. Buy me things. The numbers will tell us that we didn't waste our lives.
And the reason you desire this proof is the same reason you'll never get it. You suspect that everybody could be false. You feel deep down that anything authentic could just be a more convincing lie. And so here's the Avalon solution trademark. There's only one way to win Avalon. You must place your trust in somebody. No mission in Avalon can be undertaken alone. Each addition to the mission is an additional point of failure, but the missions need bodies all the same. Bringing fewer people means it's harder for the bad guys to hide, but at some point, you're going to have to bring more and more along in order to accomplish the greater tasks. You may bring people along even if you dislike or distrust them. You have to avoid bringing along those who are even less trustworthy. The more you place your trust in people, the more you'll discover who it is you can trust. If you trust nobody, you'll have nobody to trust when trust is required. The surveillance states and the paranoid schizophrenic end up in the same place, isolated and alone in their time of need. By failing to place trust in anyone else, they reduce their human assets to one. They stymie people who genuinely want to help. They see innovation and art as threatening signs of rebellious thought life, and they know their people have to be ruled by fear rather than love. If you go through life with unreasonable doubt whether you're a peasant or a president, you lack the ability to do anything of consequence. So what famous Maya Angelou said is correct, to a degree. When people show you who they are, believe them. Could they be lying, pretending? Absolutely. But consider doubting your doubts. Consider the possibility, however slight, that they're really on your team. What Maya meant wasn't so much that you couldn't be deceived. She meant, I think, that we need people. But what if somebody doesn't seem to be on your team? By explaining human behavior through game mechanics, I want to show how to understand why people do what they do. Avalon shows us why people act blue, no matter what color they are inside. It can explain why people pretend to be whatever it's advantageous for them to be. While this can't explain all behaviors that we dislike, it can certainly help us understand why so many people go with the flow, even if the flow is filled with pee-pee. Well, if there were enough flashing edits and reference humors in this video to distract you while the video hosting site picks your pockets, like, share, and subscribe. If this video gets less than 1,000 views, I'm not going to make another one. Bye!